Hey everyone, welcome to my channel and my first video. I am Altuğ Bozyaka and I have been playing chess since I was 6 years old. And today I am going to teach you guys the most common tactic ever invented in chess. It's so common, it's very common that I'm sure you are going to come up to it almost every single chess game that you play. And as some of you might already know it, it's called fork. Learning how to fork and the basics of fork will tremendously improve your chess. And so today I have prepared two sample positions for you. First to understand the basics of fork, and then we are going to move on and take a look at four very interesting real life examples of fork. And one of them is going to be from my own games. So make sure you watch the video until the end. If you want to fork your opponent, let's start. So what is a fork? A fork is a position where only one of your piece attacks two or more pieces at the same time. Now, if you are attacking two pieces at the same time, your opponent going to be able to escape or protect only one piece at a time. So you are going to win material or trade off for better materials by creating forks. In this first position, I am going to show you how to create a fork with this rook here. Now, if you move your rook to e4 square, you are going to attack both the knight and the bishop at the same time. As you can see, the rook is creating a fork by attacking two pieces at the same time. No matter where the bishop escapes here, the knight will be lost, or no matter where the knight goes, for example here, the bishop will be lost. So the rook is attacking two pieces at the same time and white is going to win a piece here. This second position is going to be an example of a bishop fork. Remember, we are trying to attack two pieces at the same time. So, if I move my bishop to e5 in this position, now the bishop is going to attack the king and the rook at the same time. So, as the king is under attack by the bishop, black has to escape his king to safety first, and then the rook will be lost. So, in this position, bishop creates a fork by attacking the rook and the king at the same time. So now we know what is a fork. So let's dive straight into some fork positions that occurred in real chess games. As there will be more pieces on the board now, I am going to show the following positions online. In this first game, it's played in 1993 and we have Larry Christensen with white pieces and Anatoly Karpov with black pieces. Karpov was the current world chess champion at that time, and it's only move 11. Karpov plays bishop d6, which is a shockingly bad move here. After what Christensen played here, Karpov immediately resigned the game. Can you find what Christensen played here which won the game? When we try to create forks, the main trick is to look for unprotected pieces first. So Christensen saw that the bishop on d6 is unprotected, and at the very side of the board, the knight on h5 is also unprotected. So he plays a very sneaky move, queen d1 here, which attacks the bishop and the knight simultaneously. Karpov cannot really do anything here because if he decides to escape the knight, he will lose the bishop. And instead, if he tries to escape the bishop here, for example, he will lose the knight. So we see how the fork tactic can be a very strong weapon at the very highest levels. The second game that I'm just about to show you is taken from the popular Netflix series, The Queen's Gambit. As most of you have already seen it, it's about our character Beth Harmon, who is a very talented chess player. She plays her first chess tournament, Kentucky State Championship, and in this game, she plays against the guy she loves, Towns. Here in this position, Towns with the white pieces greedily takes the pawn on h6. Beth immediately responds with king g7, attacking the rook. And rook in this position doesn't have many places to go. For example, if the rook would go to h4, Beth would have played knight f3, attacking the king and the rook at the same time, creating a very interesting fork. So Towns has to go rook h5. Beth continues to restrict, continues to squeeze that rook until it has no squares to go. So she plays king g6. In this position, we witness the knight's power in the center, its ability to create multiple fork threats at the same time. It's unbelievable, but in this position, rook doesn't have even one square to go. So the rook, again, can't go here because of knight f3. The rook cannot go any squares here because all of these squares are protected by the king or the rook. So the only squares left that the rook can go without being directly taken is e5, c5, and a5. All of the other squares, the rook would be lost. So the rook, if it goes here, knight f3, forking the rook and the king. c5, c5 or a5, Beth would have played knight b3, again forking the rook and the king, and the knight controls all of these squares, so it doesn't matter if the rook goes on c5 or a5, it will be lost. So Towns loses the rook and loses the game here. Again, a very interesting example of fork. This next game is coming from one of my own games that I played a few months ago on the internet. Again, like in the previous game, we have a very powerful knight here in the center of the board, controlling all of the squares. And I should say at this point that knights are the masters of fork in chess, mainly because of their unique movements, but also they are able to jump over the pieces and move around the board so easily. So here in move 20, I played rook a1, simply attacking the bishop. It sounds logical, right? But after the game finished, I analyzed the game and I saw that there was a better opportunity for me. Instead of playing rook a1, I could have played g4, attacking this knight. So the main idea is this move is I had to see this fork idea on f6. I could jump to f6 and create this fork. But now, at this moment, it's not possible because the knight on h5 can simply take my knights. So I had to first play g4, attacking the knight, and then when the knight goes back, for example, on g7, he has to go g7, and then I go knight f6, now creating this fork and gaining this rook. But I didn't see this. It was a fast game, and I didn't see this very brilliant fork idea, and I played rook a1, which is not a very bad move. I'm attacking the bishop, and my opponent here played an interesting move, knight b4. He said basically, if you take my bishop, I will take your rook. So I couldn't play that because I would have lost my rook. So I thought a little in this position and I saw a brilliant fork idea. I would recommend you to pause the video and try to find the fork here, but I will show you directly. So here I saw this fork idea on e7. I saw that when I come my knight on e7, I'm threatening this rook and the king at the same time, creating a fork. But now it's again not possible because the rook can take my knight. So I had to first take the rook, exchange the rooks. When he takes my rook, now I go knight e7, creating this brilliant fork. And now my opponent played king g7. He had to escape the king first, and then I simply took the rook, and then he here took my bishop. I took his bishop, and in this position, the game finished off very quickly because I'm just a rook up, and it's a simple win. For the last position, I have picked a very unusual and strange game. It isn't really played between famous players. The guy with the black pieces is called Manheimar. So Manheimar looks at this position and comes up with a very bizarre fork idea here. So he sees that white's rooks are protecting each other and he plays rook to e4. A very astonishing move. He disconnects these two rooks and attacks both of them at the same time. It's basically a fork. So white has to take the rook with the bishop, because otherwise he's going to lose one of his rooks. So if white takes the rook, it looks like white has just won a rook. But now Manheimar takes with the pawn, and it's unbelievable position here. The king is attacking both of the rooks at the same time. The piece that we always try to protect, that we always leave at the back, is now in the center, wildly attacking two of the rooks at the same time. And now white cannot do anything here because, for example, if one of the rooks escapes, the other is lost. And if, for example, the other, tries to go out, the other will be lost. So white will lose the rook here, and then black will be a piece up. So if white takes with the, for example, takes with the rook, now again Manheimar takes with the pawn, and now he's attacking the bishop with the pawn and the rook with the king. So it's another concept. Now it's not a fork because the pieces are not attacked by just only one piece. It's attacked by the pawn and the king. Yes, we are attacking two pieces at the same time, but it's not attacked by only one piece. This is called double attack. We are creating a double attack on this bishop and rook. The king and the pawn are attacking at the same time. So again, white will lose a piece, and Manheimar wins the game very impressively. We have learned a lot today about forks. And if you enjoyed this video and learned something from this video, please make sure to like this video. And if you want to hear from me again, please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video.